Hi, I'm Devin with Fabnik. We make leather stitching kits, and today we're going to look at some different surface treatments. Now, the leather that we use is full-grain aniline dyed goatskin leather. Now, what people like about aniline or untreated leather is that it has a natural look and it develops a nice patina over time. Where the downsides is that it's not as resistant to stains as treated leathers. So today we're going to look at some common surface treatments and see if they can keep some of that natural look but provide a little bit more protection. So here are the treatments that we'll be looking at today. The first is an acrylic finish, then we'll look at an oil, a natural wax, a synthetic wax. We'll also look at a control sample for how the leather is untreated, and we'll try to simulate the patina that the untreated leather develops over time. There are a lot of different treatments out there, but we chose these four as relatively representative of your different options. The acrylic treatment that we're using is Satin Shene by Eco-Flo, which is pretty commonly used on leather, and what it is doing is basically creating a thin layer of plastic over your leather to protect it. Now for our oil, we're using jojoba oil, and what's different with the oil versus some of these other treatments is that it actually sinks into the leather and conditions it more than sitting on the top. For our natural wax, we're using leather balm with atom wax, and the nice thing about waxes is that they don't provide a plasticky surface like the acrylics, but they provide better surface protection than an oil. For our synthetic wax, we're using a product by Nikwax. They call it their waterproofing for leather, and even though they describe it as a wax, it's actually a polymer, but similarly sits on the surface of the leather. Now, one of the reasons that we like untreated leather is that, as you can see on my wallet, it develops a nice patina over time. So in order to replicate that, we're going to be using a polishing wheel on a Dremel tool, just to simulate the action of taking it in and out of your pocket over time. Now we're going to let the finishes dry for about 15 minutes and come back and see the results. Now that we've allowed the treatments to dry, we're going to compare them to the unfinished control and see how things turned out. So first we'll start with the patina that we created with the polishing wheel. And as you can see, it's turned a little bit darker, it's gotten a little bit shinier, and this is just how the leather reacts over time as it's used. Next we'll go to the acrylic, and as you can see, it's made the leather a little bit darker, probably darker than the patina. It's added a good bit of a gloss, but this is probably the truest to the original color of all of the finishes that we use today. Next is the oil. And this one was a bit of a surprise. It just darkened the leather a lot compared to the other treatments. And as you can see, we had sort of a blotchy finish. We even did it again and got a bit more consistent finish, but it still darkened the leather quite a bit relative to the other finishes. Next, we have the natural wax. And this has darkened it a little bit more than the acrylic, certainly less than the oil. It's shiny. It's just about as shiny as the acrylic. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty nice finish. Next, we'll go to the synthetic wax. And in terms of color, it's about the same as the natural wax. I would say that its finish is not quite as shiny. It's probably the most matte out of the finishes that we used, aside from the oil, but it's not nearly as dark. So what I would say, looking at all of these finishes, is that if you're most interested in something that's true to the original color, the acrylic does that pretty well. If you're looking for something that has a nice matte finish without changing the color too much, I would say either of the waxes are pretty good options. And we still also like just the natural patina that the leather produces over time. The only finish I probably wouldn't recommend is the oil finish, just because it darkens it quite a bit, which is probably okay if, depending on the color of your leather, but it's hard to get an even application. Thanks.